Everyone's contained in their little boxes and very disconnected from each other.
Yes.
I only recently in the last year came to understand just how significant and important it is to have someone to talk to. Breaking the Laws of Harmony showed me where I was out of alignment with the spiritual ideal that I'm striving for. If we take the time to nurture the environment that we're in, make it be a reflection of what's inside of us, and then also take care of what's inside of us to clean up our own thoughts, our own feelings. You know, if we're constantly negatively down on ourselves, that's going to show up in how we act and speak in the world. Most people wait until they get physically sick, and then they will go and treat the problem there. Everybody's heard this whole like cleanliness is next to godliness. There's a truth to that.
What has been your journey going from being a sort of lone wolf? How do you remagnetize yourself?
Well, I think the biggest thing is a result of...
Welcome to the follow-up episode. For everyone listening, Jordan and I did a podcast initially about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and we had a chance to dive into topics around world religion, spirituality, happiness, and we also talked about the relationship men have with their own emotions. We touched on that. And I'd be curious to start with, what's most alive for you right now in your life? How are you?
There's 2 questions there. How am I? And what's alive? I'm well. I'm doing good. I think what's alive for me, a big focus for me as far as, I mean, there's like the personal level, and then there's the work in the world level, and those are intertwined. But on a personal level, there's a lot of focus on healing.
Yes.
I got myself sick recently by breaking the laws of harmony.
Yeah.
This is how we get sick at all in life. And then on a work level, I'm really interested and very excited about the launch of the new tarot deck, Patch Tarot 3, which has so many big major changes to it. And I feel like the interweaving of those things there is that the tarot deck represents living life and experiencing life at a higher dimension of understanding, a higher paradigm, a new paradigm of being. And the personal experience of breaking the laws of harmony showed me where I was out of alignment with the spiritual ideal that I'm striving for, and helping me to cultivate more of that alignment just within myself.
Yes. I definitely want to get to a few questions about your tarot decks and the meaning of tarot, because I'm personally curious about that. But I'd like to start off with how thoughts can make our body sick. Do you see that thoughts are the only thing that makes the body sick? Like, how much are you with the mind-body connection, and what are your beliefs around how powerful the mind is to affect our physical bodies?
Yeah, I mean, at the highest level, my understanding is it's total. It's like the from a level of spirit and consciousness, we cultivate the mind, and then from the level of the mind, we cultivate the body, and the actions of the body, that what we do and what we say, how we materially show up physically, is a result of the mental and emotional aspects and what's going on inside of us, right? Like the visible is informed by the invisible.
Yes.
But you can break the laws of harmony in many different dimensions. You can become sick physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, in these different areas of life. You can be healthy in one aspect of life and very sick in another, right? Like you can have very poor relationships, but be very strong with finances.
A lot of men are.
Yeah. And vice versa, right?
Yes.
There's all these different areas in life that we can cultivate connection or disconnection with ourselves, right? So the way that I have come to understand it, actually, I have to pay credit here to Paramahansa Yogananda. He provides such a clear worldview, a clear way of looking at things, and I've really drawn a lot of insight and inspiration from him.
Yes.
So he says that that you can be spiritually sick, you can be mentally sick, or you can be physically sick. And if you can solve the spiritual sickness, then the rest of them, it's like healing the higher level energetic blueprint, and they'll trickle down. Most people wait until they get physically sick, and then they will go and treat the problem there.
Yes.
But then we're just treating symptoms on the surface level of our experience. But if we recognize that there's an undercurrent of what's causing that sickness, then we can heal it at a deeper level.
So is this similar to, because I'm thinking of the guys watching, I want to give them a really clear analogy for what you're sharing here. Is it kind of like the chokehold on any business is the psychology and skills of the leader? And that the psychology and skills of the leader, the boss, trickles down to the ones under him, which trickle down to the ones under him. And if there's fuck-ups happening at the core level of like the lowest paid employee, that actually we can trace it all the way back to the top of the boss. Is that the same idea?
That is exactly right. Another way of looking at it too, we can look at it in nature. If you see let's say a flower, like this one here, but if this flower was sick and we were seeing, let's say, a disease or a rottingness that was happening on the leaves, you might, if you looked at it on the surface, you're like, well, there's a problem with that leaf. But that's not exactly it. There might be poison in the soil.
Yes.
Right? So you have to go to the root of the problem. You have to go deeper to where is it drawing nourishment from, and what is the problem of how it's drawing, what is it intaking that's leading to the result that's manifesting on the surface.
Yes.
So when people are dealing with like depression and anxiety in the world and stuff like that, there's, they might try to solve that by taking a pill because that's what the doctors recommended.
Yes.
But that's just, maybe to start that can be helpful, but it's not going to treat why are they depressed? Totally. Why are they anxious in the first place?
Yeah.
So it's the same kind of thing, right? Like we see this even with things like, like not just depression and anxiety, but we could say cancer or diabetes or these kinds of things, right? Like they're resulting from misuse and abuse and mistreatment of the body or the mind, or these like negative thoughts, or being in very stressful situations and extreme levels of stress, or poor eating or poor habits coming from improper education, not knowing how the body of consciousness really works. Just shoveling in poisons into our bodies because there's so much chemicals in all the food, right? We're living in ignorance of all of these things. If we're continually just living haphazardly in this way, not aware that there's an energetic dynamic to the material world, to the physical body, then we're just going to continue to create disharmony. And until we're able to address that through wisdom and understanding, the disharmony is just going to keep taking different forms.
So much depth there. Thank you for that. Let's use anxiety as a specific example. Anxiety is one of the most common problems that men are able to articulate that they have coming to me. And when I use the word articulate, because in business I've learned that the men or the people that I want to serve, what's actually going on at the root is usually different than what they're able to articulate to me. So what they may articulate to me is they have anxiety, but they may be totally unaware that it comes from childhood wounding, or for some, who knows, even past life. I don't know. However, what I'm curious about is, how do you personally find what that soil, what's happening with the soil? How do you actually understand what's happening in the soil? What do you do that with yourself? And do you have any advice that's different from yourself for a general man who's looking to do that?
Well, I think the biggest thing is going to be just taking the appropriate time for self-reflection, which can look like going within oneself, slowing oneself down, meditating, just becoming calm, reflecting. It can also look like getting a counselor and talking to someone. I only recently in the last year came to understand just how significant and important it is to have someone to talk to. After having been alone for a really long time, and it's a big thing. So So these kinds of things. I mean, that's going to be one of the biggest areas, is like going within, self-reflecting, but the other side of it is recognizing how you are showing up in the world and actually not thinking about yourself so much, but being in service to others. When you're able to lift someone else up, it naturally lifts you up as well. It feels good to do something good for someone else.
We're wired that way, hey?
Exactly. It's the basis of human connection. We're so disconnected from each other these days with social media and stuff. Like we're connected digitally, but we spend less time with each other in person. In fact, even just, like where we are right now, and even where I live, it's this it's a strange paradigm because it's a beautiful environment, but
Yes.
but there's so like everyone's contained in their little boxes
Totally.
and very disconnected from each other.
Yes.
Very few people know their neighbors anymore.
Almost nobody.
I have friends who live in other countries, and when they came to visit, said, "This is a little bit strange. Like it's beautiful,
Yes.
and it seems like luxurious, but at the same time, you know, where they live, it's a completely different paradigm. Like everybody knows each other. It's a
Yes.
lot more communal, you know, and also like, you know, we have this challenge of the food system as well. Like the industry of the food is
Yeah.
like apparently, you know, in South America, food isn't so poisoned. It's simpler food,
yes,
right?
yes.
We have infinite variety and abundance, but everything has processed sugar, everything has chemicals,
Yes.
and we don't even realize, most people don't realize just how toxic that stuff is,
Yes.
you know? We just take it for granted, and it's ruining us.
Totally. Yeah. One of many things I would argue are ruining our well-being.
Mhm.
If you're willing to share, what has been your journey going from being a sort of lone wolf? A lot of guys watching have been that lone wolf. Even if you felt a sense of security and peace within yourself, there still is this human need for social connection, and when we don't have it, we get stressed, depressed, we get health problems.
Mhm.
It's extraordinary how much being alone affects us and how much we need each other.
Yeah.
And in my personal journey, I've had fear around all types of people. Men that I respected are bigger men than me, scared to talk. Sexy, attractive women. And then generally just people. I felt myself just being afraid to be with people, which is seemingly counterintuitive for a social being apparently, but it was my journey and it's many men's journeys.
Mhm.
What's been your journey around going from the lone wolf and the relationship with being a lone wolf and being as evolved as you were? Even you just said a year ago you just reached out to a counselor to talk about.
Mhm.
So you've been evolving for a long time and you had a sense of inner security and love, I would imagine. What's it like to have that same inner security and love, but to now be in this place where you, I'm assuming, are taking more time to talk to a counselor or go out and meet certain people?
Mhm. Well, there's definitely a need, or like a feeling of a need of responsibility to be able to, or a sense of responsibility that has arisen within me to take that time. Like noticing if I've been way too much on my own, that I'm like, I need to spend time with other people. And if I try to cope by not having that, like coping in other ways, like
Yes.
it's not going to be,
Yes.
it's not going to be good. I don't really know exactly what to say here though, because there's a balance. I have found even when spending too much time with large groups of people, it like diffuses one's own personal energy to the point where you might even end up losing yourself.
Yes.
You know, there's that quote that says, you become like the people you spend the most time with. I think we talked about that before. So it's about cultivating really good friendships.
Yes.
Having those containers where you can spend good time with people and enjoy the quality time, lift each other up, and then you still have the opportunity to take your own space afterwards, but then when you have your own space, use the time and the energy well too.
Yes.
You know, like not just going back home and being like, oh my God, now have a drink and then just
watch Netflix.
and then just veg out
Yeah.
consistently and then just let the energy completely diffuse itself, dissipate.
Yeah.
You want to continually be kind of remagnetizing yourself to your own soul and to your spirit.
Oof.
So that you can bring it back
Damn.
in the connection with other people.
Talk dirty to me. That's awesome, dude. How do you you said remagnetize yourself?
Remagnetize?
How do you remagnetize yourself?
Okay, so again, you're just going to be reiterating some of the same things. Like meditation is going to be one of the biggest things that one can do.
What does meditation mean? Not the definition, but like, what does it look like? How do you do it?
I mean,
what are a few different varieties people could try?
My go-to, and it does take some discipline, right? It's just sitting still, closing your eyes, breathing gently. There's actually 4 stages or 4 steps in Kriya Yoga, the basics of Kriya Yoga, which is to sit with a straight back, because when you do so, you create I think we talked about this on our last
Yeah,
podcast too.
That's the same question.
It's all good. So there's a cerebrospinal fluid that runs up and down the spine.
We didn't talk about this.
We didn't?
No, we didn't talk. I would have remembered.
Okay. So there's cerebrospinal fluid that flows up and down the spine, the spinal column, and when you're sitting with a very straight posture, you create an alignment where that fluid can actually run. And so by sitting in meditation and breathing and being calm, you create that toroidal field, basically. Like the fluid moves up and down your spine, and it creates a strong energetic field around within your body.
Which some may call the aura, your aura.
Yes. You strengthen your aura or aligning your energy centers or your chakras. Mm-hmm. So that's step one. The next step is breathing. Of course, the breathing practice also circulates the blood and the energy through the body, contributing to that same thing.
Yep.
You want to be sort of putting your then the next two steps are light and sound, or focus and sound. It's like you want to be pointing your eyes here, like as much as you can. Generally, is the space between the eyebrows, and just gently relaxing them under the eyes and bringing your focus to a singular point. And the more that you do that, you're essentially training your left and right hemispheres of your brain to synchronize with each other.
Yeah.
And that can ultimately lead to having sort of visionary experiences, sort of like psychedelic visions, if you will.
Yeah.
And then the last thing is adding affirmations or mantras on top of it, right? So like continually affirming over and over, whether it's in English, like an affirmation, I love myself, I trust myself, I honor myself, I value myself, kind of in a repeat of that, or you're doing like some mantra, some chant, or just saying Om. The power of mantras generally are that they in the Sanskrit languages or in these ancient languages, even Arabic or Egyptian, the vibrational structure of that language or those languages are replete with the power of the vibratory force that they represent.
Yeah.
So we've kind of lost that in the English language today, or a lot of our languages today.
Yeah.
But so when you're, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, you're like invoking the divine force.
Now, do you need to know what those words mean to get to evoke the divine force? Like, do you have to be connected to the meaning of it when you say it? Or could I just make those sounds with no meaning attached to it and I get the same result?
It has a lot more weight if you know the meaning.
Yeah.
But if you don't, it will still have an effect because it still has a vibratory power to it. Yep. It's just when you have meaning, you're able to consciously and intentionally connect with what it is you're invoking at the same time. Which aspect of the creative power? Yeah.
So the meaning. So do the meaning of words then whatever those words mean, these powerful words, do they connect us to let's say micro field of energy and information that can be healing or that can be empowering or that can be something? Like, if I repeat a word over and over and I'm in a relaxed state, alpha brainwave state, and I'm in my subconscious mind, I'm connected to it, and I can access different fields of energy and information. Do I, when saying an affirmation, channel that energy and information into my individual being, and then I get the benefits of it? Is that how it works?
It sounds like you already have the answer. I mean,
is that how it works? That's my opinion. Okay.
I mean, you described it very beautifully. Like, when we consider that thoughts and feelings extend beyond ourselves and exist as a field, and that we're a part of a collective consciousness field, then when you're invoking thoughts that reflect a higher vibratory, state, you are tuning and resonating yourself to that vibration, and then you're starting to emanate that quality out into the world.
And then is there a reverberation effect? I've read about like there's the vibration that we send off, and there's a vibration that comes back to us. Could you talk a little bit about the exchange of energy and information that I think where I'm leaning towards, and I know this conversation is really passioning for you, about the idea of inside-out manifestation, and I think that this concept for some of the listeners right now, if they're coming from my side, it makes some sense, but it also doesn't seem, there isn't a clear picture, I think, in a lot of their minds for how this works. And that's something that's helped me, is being able to understand a vision of seeing vibrations go out and come back, and how from what comes inside of me can go out and how it can affect in my life. You know, so is there a mental model that you use to understand the coming and going of these waves of information that might help in understanding?
The simplest one is probably the diagram, the geometry of a toroidal field, of a torus.
Yes.
Right? Because the torus expands out from, you've got this point of singularity and it's a spherical field. It expands outward in one direction and then it draws in energy wrapping around the other side.
Yeah.
So we could think about it in this way very simply, is like as you are meditating or breathing or cultivating different inner qualities and states, that you're expressing those out into the field and you're simultaneously drawing in that around you. So there's that law of attraction kind of karmic science that says like attracts like.
Yes.
And that if you are actively magnetizing yourself to the qualities and the subject matter, the people, the anything that really is of interest to you, you're naturally going to bring those kinds of people or qualities or experiences to you as well.
Yes.
Right? And it doesn't have to be so esoteric or so mystical.
Totally.
In the sense that when you are interested in something, you're naturally going to be seeing things like that catch your eye. So if you're more spiritually inclined and then you're, say, walking past a movie theater and you're seeing posters for all the different movies, if there's a movie that has a poster about a monk on it, and then there's a bunch of war things,
Yeah.
you're probably going to be drawn to that one,
Yes.
right? And it's just like there's a magnetic quality because you're going to be interested in the things that you're interested in.
Right. Right.
It doesn't have to be so like out there. It's just kind of how we live our lives.
Yes.
We just don't recognize so often that there is this undercurrent of energy that's going into everything, right? And if you're very triggered, you're very emotional, you're very you're in a darker state, then you might naturally be inclined to gravitate towards experiences or miss opportunities to go for something greater.
Yes.
Because there's a lower something that's taking place.
Yes.
There's a rather, what I'm trying to say, there's an inner magnetic quality to resonating at a lower vibration, right?
Yes.
It's the whole thing with the chakras. It's like when you're in a survival focus or a fear mentality or an anxious state, your focus in life is very narrow. You're just focused on your immediate need and concern.
Right.
When you're in your heart or in or in a higher conscious state, you have a much more expansive awareness about all the infinite possibilities, and you're able to perceive more opportunities that are before you.
Yeah, no, unquestionably. I don't know why I've been getting really fired up about the third eye and the root chakra lately.
Cool.
I don't know why, just vibing with them. Let's talk about the third eye chakra. Some guys will say like, that's not the third eye, it's the prefrontal cortex. Which I don't know if it's the same thing or not, if it's just different modes of viewing. Like one person's looking at the biological, the neurobiology of it all. Okay, it's the medial prefrontal cortex, that's the label. Then you talk to someone more spiritual, then they call something right here the third eye. What does the third eye do? What's its function for us as a being? So again, there's a few different dimensions of this that we could look at, because the third eye is relative. There's a bit of a discrepancy about this. When you look it up online, all the chakras relate with different glands in the body. Yes. So the third eye is either relative to the pineal gland or the pituitary gland. Yes. Depending on who you ask, it's one or the other. Yes. It might actually be both because they're so closely interrelated with each other. I think it's probably closer to say that it's related with the pituitary, except that the pineal gland also functions like an eyeball. The challenge is that then the crown chakra is also often considered the 1,000-petaled lotus, and we actually have the third eye, or the pineal gland, functioning in that kind of way where it looks like a pine cone with all the 1,000-petaled lotus, wrappings around it, sort of thing. So these two things are they're very closely interrelated with each other, and we could be discussing it on a physical level, what the pineal and the pituitary gland do and how that relates with the third eye. Or you can describe it on a metaphysical level, a spiritual level, where you say that the pineal gland, so many terms. The third eye. The third eye is relative to the
ability to see and perceive patterns in life, right? So recognizing our own habits and our patterns and seeing patterns in the world,
Yes.
we start to recognize how things fit together, both on personal levels, on global levels, on
Yes.
societal levels, like how things work, how our own behaviors are. And when we can see these patterns, that unlocks the doorway to deeper understanding.
Yes.
And that, I think, is why those two glands are also so deeply relative to each other, is because to understand is to perceive patterns, but to perceive patterns takes place in the third eye, and to understand takes place in the crown. They're a lens and a doorway into each other, and it's the place from which higher understanding flows into our mind,
Yes.
and it's also the place from which, or from wherein which inside we can see patterns and then reach higher understanding and expand into a greater state of connectedness with everything.
Yes. So would that be the center of our intuition?
Yes and no, because
Depending on the type of intuition?
yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say, is there's different types of intuition.
4 kinds?
I suppose you could say that. Again, there's many ways of mapping the body, classifying the body of consciousness, right? Because you could say mind, body, and spirit.
Right.
You can also say mind, emotions, body, and spirit. So you just go to 3, and then we have 4, and then you have, well, there's 5 types of prana, there's 7 chakras, you know, so there's just different systems, right?
Yeah.
And
all is one thing.
and they're all, right, they're all one thing, it's just different geometries.
Yeah.
Again, when you look through the third eye and you're seeing all these different patterns, it's good not to lock into each one, but to understand each one and see how they fit together. So the remind me the question. Oh, the intuition.
Like clairvoyance, that's what I'm more thinking of, is that language.
I see. Clairvoyance, clairsentience,
claircognizance, and clairaudience.
Right.
That's what I was thinking.
That you could probably speak to a little bit better than I can.
Okay.
My research lately and my exploration of this is in the realm of saying, like, the body has an intuition, the mind has an intuition, the spirit has an intuition.
Oh, it's an interesting frame.
And that, like, because, like, the body is very wise all on its own, but can also be woefully addicted to its own habits and patterns as well, right?
I can attest to that.
I think we all can. It's a challenge to navigate, right? So sometimes the mind or the spirit, this higher intuition, has to override the body's attachments and addictions or desires. Simultaneously, sometimes we really have to rely on the body's intuition. Like, if you're walking down the street and you think, I'm going to take this dark alley, and the body's like, I just had like this jerk reaction. I should not walk down this dark alley. You should maybe trust that body's intuition, right? So the more time that we take to integrate mind, body, and spirit together and become unified as a whole being, the intuition faculties of every dimension of ourselves align with each other, and we become clearer and clearer and clearer.
Yes, which means what I hear there is that I'm more aware of my needs. I'm more aware of, is this a body signal that I want to listen to? Is this like some craving?
Yeah.
I can decipher that signal a little bit better, which means I can make a better choice.
Right.
That makes a lot of sense to me. I really like that. Let's switch topics a bit to environment and space cultivation. One thing that I'm present to sitting here is that I feel a lightness, and I remember I was in Cinnamon in Bali, which is like way up in the mountains, looks relatively similar, and I remember feeling a lightness, and I assumed it was because there was just simply less beings, less people. It was so much more spread out, the energies, plus I was higher up. I was like, I think that created some of the lightness. But I also, just walking into your bathroom for 2 seconds and seeing affirmations on the mirror, I can see that you do things within yourself to keep yourself in a state of lightness, and plants and certain things. So what's the importance for you of cultivating your environment, and how do you keep things light in the space that you live?
Well, if we consider everything being energy, then our home is kind of like our greater body. Just as you want to cultivate clarity and cleanliness inside the body, you also want to create clarity and cleanliness outside the body. I mean, everybody's heard this whole, like, cleanliness is next to godliness. And I think there's a truth to that, both like cleaning yourself and then cleaning your space. But it's not just good enough to have it's like there's got to be an intention, a reason behind, you know, just we don't want to have a sanitized environment. We don't want to have
look at a hospital. It's sanitized, but oftentimes it's not super high vibe.
You're right, emotionally empty,
right?
You know, sort of thing. Yeah. Oftentimes,
or
depends
distraught
on
even. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
And not that again, hospitals they serve a purpose. Maybe there needs to be an integration with that higher understanding of the energetic qualities of things too, right? It can be a wellness hospital. One can only imagine what that kind of space would look like. But as far as our own environment, I think it's like if we take the time to nurture the environment that we're in, make it be a reflection of what's inside of us, and then also take care of what's inside of us to clean up our own thoughts, our own feelings. You know, if we're constantly negatively down on ourselves, that's going to show up in how we act and speak in the world as well, right? And we're just going to be continually creating this lower quality state of being.
Yes.
So it's just a matter of make your space be a reflection of the ideal that you're aiming for within yourself, as you're also cultivating your inner qualities to reflect that ideal as well. You know, Jordan Peterson actually said it really well. He's like that when you make an ideal for yourself, that becomes a judge whether or not you're on the right track of it or not. So if you say like, I want to be, you're saying like, I want to really clean up my body, I want to fast for a week. Like the judge then becomes like, did you eat this week? You know, and you start, you know, like having to make choices on whether or not you're going to follow the plan that you've set out for yourself, right?
Yes.
Buddha said something similar, although he was mocking people at one point. He was like, I mean, mocking, I think maybe is a harsh term, but he says, well, no, it says in the Dhammapada, it's like, you fools, you spend all of your time combing your hair on the outside, not realizing how tangled the thoughts of your mind are. You know, so we want to do both. It's not just about the physical appearance. It's not just about looking good physically. It's about energetically feeling and looking and cultivating the inner qualities right, and then reflecting that out in everything that you do, including the space that you hold.
Yes.
Yeah.
How much patience do you have with other people that are not vibrating at the same level as you? How much patience do you have in your space? Like, is it like an instant leave, like instant walk away? Like, how much patience do you have there?
I don't know how to. I guess none, but also probably way more than is right. The thing is I don't invite people over who I wouldn't have patience for.
Yes.
So,
but like, what about out in public, or if you meet someone at some event or something like that?
You know, I don't really talk to people too much. I went to an event recently. All of the people I spent time with were great. Right? Like, but there were definitely people at the event who I wouldn't spend time with.
Yes. But
I was just in a different magnetic energy than them. We just didn't come into contact with each other. You know?
Yeah, I get it.
So I don't know if I was talking with someone. I guess, you know, there was one guy at one moment that I spoke to for a little bit, and I entertained. He had a very interesting dynamic. He was like challenging me from this holier than thou kind of perspective. It was entertaining to me. I entertained the conversation, but at a certain point I just went, thank you very much, I have to go find my friend now.
Yeah.
And I just departed and went on my way, and it was very simple to break that connection. So, you know, it's a matter of just like, hold your boundaries.
Yeah.
If you are at a place where you're not vibing with someone, just say, thank you very much for your time. I have to go now.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people, they try to make up excuses like, oh, I just got a text on my phone, and you don't have to be, you don't have to
call
be
my mom. You know?
Yeah. I mean, if there's somewhere that you have to be, then be about it. And if that place is just, just say, thank you for your time. I gotta go. You know, it doesn't have to be so elusive, or what's the word I'm looking for? It doesn't have to be so like dodgy. Just be upfront, you know, just direct with people.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. I'm curious to know what has kept you humble on your path, because learning things, as much as you've studied a lot, you've created a certain level of success in your life in comparison to others. There's a tendency for the ego to attach to that and create an inflation. So what do you focus on, or what has naturally come into your life that has kept you humble? Because I feel a genuine humbleness about you. So what's created that?
I appreciate that. And God and my own karma, I would say, is the answer. Like, there has been, ever since making Spirit Science originally, you know, I got so much attention and just so many people reaching out to me and being like, oh my God, your videos, your content, it's changing my life. It healed me, it helped me awaken, it helped all of this stuff, right? And so I was just a young, stupid kid, you know, at 19 and 20 when I was starting this whole thing. And it did go to my head for a while, and that led me to falling into very challenging times in relationships and partnerships with people that were not of my best interest, because I really didn't know better, and I didn't have a proper guide who could help me to stay humble and stay, you know, so stay clear on the path that I was on. And I didn't even know where I was going for a lot of the time, right? Like, I knew I wanted to make an impact and change the world and spread the word about spirituality, and, you know, the how life can be really wonderful when we're in a state of working together with each other in harmony. But then you fall into these traps of people taking advantage of you, and maybe you even taking advantage of others without even realizing it, right? And so from these mistakes and these falling outs that you have, those are the humbling lessons if we don't have a teacher who can humble us, you know, and be stern with us, which is also a very good thing to have, is like a strong mentor who knows better. That's also been very good. But yeah, just after having gone through so many challenging times, over and over, I've come to this place of the ego just being like, no, I don't know better. I'm not a master. I do not know anything. And then from the recognition of that, wisdom comes. And it's when, again, you were talking about the third eye and the recognizing of patterns. We also see this in a lot of wisdom teachings, like the Tao is an excellent tool that often talks about the grace of humility.
Yeah, big time.
When we can just adopt a humble state and just being like, I really, like, consistently, you don't have to be down on yourself, but acknowledging how little it is that we know, then you become a vessel for wisdom to flow through you always. It's only when we start to think that we know better that that we block information from coming in. Exactly. That's usually that's like actually the best way of putting it is like, if the mind is a doorway, when we think that we know better, it's like that's what closes the door. Because we're like, well, I have all the information, right? Be humble, open up the mental doorway, and we can just we sink deeper into being who we really are in life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I've also been humbled many a time, often by sickness, actually. I found that sickness has been a way I've been humbled. But I really appreciate that, and I'm curious to know, what was one of the things that, looking back, you're like, oof, if I just, like, I wish I didn't do that, but I learned so much. Like, what was something specific that you went through, maybe at a younger age?
I would say that, you know, from the very beginning, I set out creating the content that I was creating, just thinking, I just want to make cartoons. I just want to be a animator and tell stories and do that sort of thing. That's where my highest passion is. That's
so cool, by the way, that you do that, like tarot animation, and you're doing it at such a scale and with so much output. Like, to me, that is just so fucking badass, dude. So badass. Just have to say.
Thank you.
Not trying to boost you were just talking about humility, but it's just real shit, dude. It's super cool.
Yeah, it's a thing too, to like receive a compliment and not deny the compliment,
and yet still fully,
and then also go, yeah, and there's still so much for me to learn, and I'm doing my best, and we're our own worst critics. I look at my art and my animations, and I'm like, especially my animations, they always felt very stiff to me, and we're getting off the topic.
How do you feel about sharing personal stories about yourself? Like when because you're becoming more public now, front facing.
Right.
You've built this massive brand with cartoons and with graphics and things of that nature.
Yeah.
And now you're becoming more front facing. What's it like to have so many eyes on you and sharing your authenticity, sharing your truth?
I try not to think about it.
Yes. Why? When you do think about it, what happens?
I feel like there's this giant responsibility
Yes.
to show up in the world in a way that reflects the qualities that I've been speaking about for a really long time. Like Spirit Science with Patchman and the videos that I've made, you know, I would talk about the value of meditation and keeping your energy clean and astral travel or
Yes.
being a virtuous person and stuff
Yes.
like that, right? But then in my personal life, I struggled with that for a
Yes.
long time too.
Yes.
And I didn't feel like the qualities that I was putting out fully reflected the me that
How you're living.
how I was living and who I wanted, but yeah, and how I was living didn't reflect who I wanted to be.
Yes. And did you feel like that person, yet just sometimes it was hard to live it or behave like it?
Yeah,
Like you had that seed inside of you that you were nurturing.
yeah. The
But you
seed
weren't
was
perfect
growing.
yet.
The seed was growing.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And this year, I mean, more so in the last 2 years, like since 2022 especially, I've experienced this huge amount of growth
Yeah.
in maturity and discipline and resolve to be at a higher level.
I love that for you.
And then, thank you.
I get fired up. Whenever someone says like a little bit of progress, I'm like, let's fucking go. Okay, sorry, go for it.
And then this year, I've also seen just a lot of work, I guess, a lot of discipline and a lot of inner work to reach to a level where I can look in the mirror and I'm
Yes.
like, I like what I see and I want to reflect that quality for the world. And I feel this level of responsibility. Like you were saying, what happens when you think about it? Like there is a lot of responsibility. I think if I think too much about it, then I become overwhelmed by this feeling of responsibility and this knowing that I'm never going to be good enough.
Yeah.
You know, because the ideal is perfection.
Totally.
And I think that's for all of us, like that's the great spiritual struggle
Yes.
of being human.
Totally.
Is that the soul is infinite and perfect and
yeah.
bright, shining, one with the divine.
Yeah.
And the mortal body is a cage of finite flesh that makes all of the mistakes in the world. So we have to reconcile those two aspects, like the perfectness and the imperfectness, and be okay with the imperfection. And in that being okay with it, it becomes so much easier to live the way that we know is right inside. Like Buddha has the Eightfold Path, right? Which is like right living and right action, right thought and right mindfulness, right attentiveness, right effort, and so on. When we live from that place of like every action, every thought, our attention, our focus, our liveliness is right, meaning right with our soul, feels good within, then the body starts to reflect that rightness as well. And we become what could be said an avatar of our higher self, or we become an instrument of our own inner divinity to live in the world.
Yes.
And nobody's expecting us, even like God knows that we are imperfect by design,
Yes.
and that's part of the journey. But also part of the journey is reaching to our inner perfection as much as we can and helping others to do the same.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
What's your vision for your ideal for how you want to contribute or serve? In what ways do you show up that it's both authentic to you and you see has a significant impact on others? Like, what's that sweet sauce for you? Is that your tarot decks? Is that your Instagram? What's that meeting point?
Oh, I don't get Instagram at all. Like social media, like I mean, this is a bit of a tangent, but because you said it, like social media and I don't really get along. I get YouTube. I like making videos, but I see that people are all over the place and I want to reach people everywhere.
Yeah.
So it's like, I've done my best, but I feel like it's definitely not good enough when it comes to social media.
Okay.
The way that I'm called to support people or like to serve humanity, to raise consciousness, is to be constantly creating content and materials that and even services, offering services that can help people find themselves to be all that they really are and help them find themselves inside. At the biggest level, what I want to do is create like I've always imagined it as a pyramid, but it's a big healing center that is also or like maybe it's a threefold, maybe it's a plot of land with 3 pyramids, but it's it's a healing center, a studio, and a laboratory.
Yeah.
So the laboratory can do actual spirit science experiments, help like doing experiments that demonstrate the power of meditation and how to align and heal your chakras and demonstrate those things in a scientific way. Maybe even work on some sort of magical free energy device. Like I imagine a power plant, a plant that takes light from the sun and converts it into electricity.
That's so cool.
Power plant.
Love it.
Trademark. And then we'd have a studio that is actively making content about the science that's being done in the laboratory, as well as making our own, inspiring, telling stories and things that are really meaningful and really fun. And then the healing center that puts also those things together, and then we use the healing modalities that we've discovered in the laboratory and other meditation practices in a healing space, and we do it's like a trinity of awesomeness, and it's just like,
oh my god,
it's such a, it's just like that's my dream.
Yeah,
I don't think I'm quite there yet, but I'm working towards it.
I love it.
Then for the moment, again, everything that I set my heart upon, or everything I put my hands to, I just want it to be imbued with all of my love. Sometimes that's difficult because when you're running a company and you have like administrative tasks to do that you don't want to do, it's like, I have to call my bank and try to apply for a loan or da-da-da-da, and I'm like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
I want to draw pictures.
Totally.
But
totally.
But as far as like, the videos that we make and the stories that we tell and the tarot, all of the art and the books that I've been writing and even the affiliate programs that I work with, it's just like, I want to connect with people, places, and things that are in service to humanity and build a network of things that are good for everybody, and then put my piece into that as well, which more often than not is artistic.
Totally, and you've done it so beautifully and at an incredible scale as well. And it seems really authentic to you. Like you said, since you were a kid, you've enjoyed drawing and things of that nature.
Yeah, I've started I was drawing since I was 5 or younger, 3. I don't know.
So very, very young. Like inner child vibe.
Inner child vibe.
Yeah, play creative. So it's so interesting to me because there is a level of, I believe, trust and confidence and belief in oneself or the universe to really say I'm gonna make my money and live my life with my authentic creativity. Did you always have that level of purpose or confidence to be able to do that? Did you ever waver? Or were you that guy or that kid that was like, I'm gonna grow up and be an artist, and you really just kept going and did it? Did you ever sway and feel like you wanted to do something else for more of a practical reason, as an example?
No, I feel like I got shoehorned into running a business because I wanted to do something different and wanted to make cartoons. Yeah. It was only after making cartoons and doing spirit science for a while, realizing, I also have to make money and support myself. I guess I have to become a businessman. The ego shifts around. It's like, okay, we're going to figure this out, I guess. Yeah. Terribly hard. It was very hard.
Yeah, I believe it.
but that has been, I never really liked to do things just to make money. Yes. But also then sometimes being in states of extreme financial distress. Yes. Then it's like, I have to do things to make money. Yeah. What is that? And then trying to find the middle ground where it's like, this is in service to people. Yeah. And it's going to help make money. That's been a big challenge. But the things in life that did the best, like the tarot deck. Mm-hmm. I made a tarot deck because I wanted to make cartoons about tarot because I loved learning about it, and I thought, well, if I'm gonna make cartoons about explaining how the tarot works, I should probably just be using my own deck that I drew. So I just started making a deck, and then that did very, very well. Yes. So that's cool. It's like usually providence flows when there isn't so much of an attachment or desire to making money. Yes. But that's true on a spiritual level. I think for people who exist in the business world, there's many ways of making money. Yeah. And there are dark ways of making money as well. And if you're walking on that path, it's a dangerous path because you're also going to be accruing a lot of bad karma if you're taking advantage of people for money. Yes. Right? Yes. So I'm not in support of that, but I can see, it's like there's space for everything on planet Earth right now, the positive and the negative.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess that would be my answer.
Wow, that's super cool. And what's your process before going into a creative flow session? I imagine you're intentional about it. Maybe there's times where the inspiration hits and you just go.
Mm-hmm.
But on a consistent basis, on a ritual and discipline level, what do you do to keep yourself in a place where you can drop into that non-attached state where you have focus and are able to let that art form, that gift of yours flow? Is there anything that you do before, any breath, any focus, any specific meaning that you assign the task as a whole, any belief that helps you really produce at that level?
Well, usually every morning when I wake up, there's like a check-in part of my day, and usually comes through meditation of just getting really clear. What is it? Maybe some journaling as well, some reflecting. Like, what is it that I'm going to do today? I look at my to-do list. What can I accomplish today, and what will feel really good? And usually it's like taking action by accordance with what's necessary.
Yeah.
And just doing my best to, like, at the end of the day, all of the work that I have to do is all towards that same common goal of raising consciousness, raising my own consciousness, raising the world, serving others. And it's like, what is the content we're producing today? What's going to be meaningful in that sense? And then doing it.
Yeah.
And then, and it's just a matter of applying yourself to that project or to that task and being fully and wholly engaged in it. It probably could be said that the challenge that a lot of people have in the world of not feeling connected with their work or a sense of meaning is that they don't like what they do. A lot of people have jobs working for people they don't like, doing things that they don't want to be doing.
Totally.
So if that's the case, the best thing that they could do is probably go within and find out what it is they really do want to be doing, and then set their hearts upon that. Now sometimes there is a transition that it might take some time, right? If they want to be independent filmmaker, but they're working at Starbucks, it's like, you don't just quit your job here and then start doing this, expecting this to carry you immediately. Sometimes some people can do that.
Yeah, sometimes it works.
It really depends on their determination and resolve and skills and how much they're willing to apply themselves. But it might be that you start to taper this job as you start to work on this thing over here, and then you can eventually let go of the old way and move into the new. And that's a gradual process of, again, going within and embodying the qualities that you want to embody at the highest level, and then acting on that, like acting from that place every day. I love that. And to me, it's I don't know, one of the top 2 greatest gifts of my life is to be able to do what I love every day, to genuinely enjoy the process of my life. And when I think back to older jobs I've had, I'm like, damn, I literally can't even imagine a paradigm where I'm living and working in a job like that. So I feel so grateful. And I'm really glad we touched on that, because you're certainly someone who illuminates and embodies that beautifully at scale, like I've been saying. And that just makes me happy. I really hope people feel inspired to do that, because I think it's one of the things that makes the world a better place. Like one of the major things that humans can do is to switch to doing what they love, because then more love gets put into the work, into the economy, etc. Exactly.
I want to go on a total, Uno reverse here, or right turn, and talk about death. I would be curious to know your relationship to the idea of your own death in this human body, and the value, if any, that the idea of death has given to you for how to live.
Well, interestingly, coming very close to death recently was something that propelled a tremendous amount of growth for me. And I don't want to get into the details here as to what happened, but I spent some time in the hospital last year, and I have never been so close to death before from that moment. And in having gone through that experience, it changed me. Like it fundamentally shifted my relationship with my own body and my mortality, and brought me more at peace with myself also, I think, in the grand scheme of things. It also pushed me to push myself a lot further and farther than I've ever been before. And I think it's like it's important to recognize it. So on a spiritual or a metaphysical level, we can see incarnation naturally requires excarnation or if that's
outcarnation.
Outcarnation.
I like that. We should make that
Incarnation, outcarnation. The fact that we're born leads to the necessity of death as a result.
Yeah.
Now, some ascended masters in life have attained levels of immortality where they can translate their body fully out of matter into energy. I would reference Thoth as well as Babaji, who are both masters who we have seen reports and or at least you can read the writings and the testimonials of and accounts of that levels of transcendence.
Yeah.
We have also, of course, the most popular or prominent one in the world today is Yeshua, or who we know as Jesus Christ, who was completely killed and his body destroyed and resurrected from a level of mastery, right? Now, some people will look at these stories and say, well, that's a metaphor.
It's a metaphor.
Or it's an archetype that we can follow, but it reflects I used to believe that. I really did.
Yeah.
And I came to a shift within myself by reconciling it against the whole biology of belief. Because Bruce Lipton has shown the science of our beliefs change the way that our DNA shows up. If we actually believe in those stories of ascended masters attaining immortality and transcending all death and limitation, then we too, it creates a pathway for us to be able to learn how to do that. Maybe not in this lifetime. Maybe humanity has thousands of years of evolution to go before we all get there, right? And these masters, they come once every thousands and thousands of years, sort of thing. But that doesn't change the fact that if we believe in it, it helps to create a pathway for our own soul transcendence.
Yes.
That belief alone has changed my experience of myself and spirituality and life in a huge way. So I tend to be on the believing side.
That's cool.
Of all of the stories.
Yep.
But that said, even for those masters, like Babaji being in the immortal body, this transcendent body that he's in, I don't know if you or your followers would be familiar with Babaji or his whole lineage and stories.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'd recommend for anybody listening who's interested to check out the autobiography of a yogi, because it just
I bought that book since I last met you because you told me to.
It's such a brilliant account. It's absolutely profound and very far-reaching in its implications for who and what humanity as a species is and what's possible for us. But with him, even at one point, he says, I'm just going to dissolve my physical body and become one with the ether and the pure spirit of energy. And it was Mataji, his sister, who says, please don't. We love you so much. Please don't leave us in this plane. And he's like, well, okay, at least not for right now. And so he stuck around and didn't dissolve. So even from the Ascended Master perspective, the physical body is still a container for the soul. And even if the soul reaches a level of transcendence where the body can be lifted purely into energy, that's still a container, because at the highest level, we are nothingness. We are nothing. Not nothing as in nothing, but the vacuum of pure spirit, the non-vibration from which vibration comes, is the pure beingness from where the soul arises. So what we have to recall is, from the very beginning of our incarnation, it's sort of here's this infinite soul light wrapped in veils and veils of different bodies: mental body, astral body, causal body, emotional body, physical body, right? We are incarnated in this physical form. We can do anything that we want to with it. But if we're so attached to the body, then we might miss out on all of the possibilities of what we can become in the body and out of the body. If we let go of our fear of death, then life becomes a lot more joyful.
Way more.
And we become more, every day becomes a gift rather than this slow slog through to a terrifying
till
ending.
the end.
Right. Because it could be said that when one dies, the physical body dissolves back into the elements of the earth. But the astral body and the causal body and the source from which our senses arise just returns to the astral dimension, and we kind of turn on those lights and remember, oh yes, that's right, this is who I am at a higher dimension. Oh yes, okay, this is where I came from. Oh well, that was kind of fun. Maybe I'll go back and do another lifetime, you know. that's what a lot of mystics say anyways, and I think anyone who experiences enough psychedelics
or near-death experiences,
they pass out of death, they come back, they have that same kind of revelation. It's like, oh, it's light, there's a higher world, there's a higher, right? All of it.
Life is never the same after that moment.
Exactly.
Yeah, which is interesting to think about where our current paradigm is for most people collectively.
Yeah.
Like, Alan Watts was probably the first guy who really explained to me how deeply rooted our perceptions of reality are, and how they come from years of history and religion and present time programming, and then the power of totally letting go, first of all, of just conditioning itself, letting go of the mind itself and experiencing something beyond, experiencing real silence, inner stillness. And yeah, I guess I just continuously find myself being a little baffled at the fact that things that we talk about here on this podcast isn't common knowledge or a common conversation.
Yeah.
I don't know why I keep getting baffled at that. I just don't understand.
I've come to that as well before, and I often wonder if I'm doing a good enough job, like, of reaching people to talk about these kinds of things. But ultimately, like, everybody has to find their path of what they're called to and what's interesting to them too, And I don't know. I feel like society is ready, humanity is ready for a higher collective awakening. But what it's going to take for us to get there, that is part of a mystery. Because, like, we have our the computer algorithms, right? Like the conversations that people that are having on social media, they often exist, we'll say, within one or several different predominant dimensions, usually related to those root, sacral, solar plexus, the lower centers, right? We need to expand the conversation into a higher dimension, but in order to do that, people have to move into their heart collectively. So as long as people are not moving into their heart, the higher conversations aren't going to be happening. So what's it going to take for humanity to move into their heart on a higher level? I don't know. And I think the biggest thing for me has been lifting myself up, so that it's like, there's this idea, I love to use this analogy of a tapestry. Like, if you imagine a carpet or a tapestry, if you take one strand of it and you just pull up on it, the whole thing is going to move up around it. One of the best ways to raise consciousness is not forcing other people to wake up, but to raise your own consciousness so that you become, emanating the vibration that you want to at the higher level, right, at a higher frequency. This is something that is explained very beautifully by Dr. David Hawkins in the book Power versus Force. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Haven't read it.
But he describes this map of consciousness and describes how he's charted it on a chart from basically 0 to 1,000, and that at the level of 200, everything below that is like shame, fear, guilt, apathy, these lower vibrations of being. And then everything above that is like courage and
courage
resolve.
Is the 200, right? Yeah.
Courage is the 200 level, and love and joy. And at the highest level, it's enlightenment.
Right.
And he describes that great masters, like saints exist at like the 500-600 level, and then the great masters like Krishna and Jesus and Buddha exist between that 700 to 1,000, and simply by existing at that level, they raise the collective vibration of all of humanity tremendously, by exponentially, because they vibrate at such a high frequency, right? The way that he said it is that they create such strong attractor energy fields that completely that they last for thousands of years and reshape society continually just by the presence of their words and their deeds, even in memory. So for us, it's sort of similar. If we focus on cultivating inner qualities of virtue and goodness and raise our vibration to higher and higher levels, then we naturally become energetic field generators that lift other people up all around us.
Yes. That's so awesome, dude. And I hope that this conversation today for everyone listening does that. I hope it raises their consciousness a bit. That was part of my intention outside.
I hope so.
Me too. I hope he didn't decrease it. I doubt it.
Depends who's listening.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Baba G's we're fucked.
Baba G's like, oh man.
Like, I gotta turn this off, man.
Yeah. That's very humbling.
Yeah, totally. I want to end off with one simple question, which is that if you had to give one belief or perception of reality to everybody on the earth today in 2024, and you can only give one, what perception or paradigm would you want to give them?
Everything is energy. That everything that we think of that is matter and is solid at the fundamental, dynamic, interconnected unity state of the quantum field is just potential energy. Like, this couch appears relatively solid, maybe a bit squishy.
Still solid.
But it's made of solid matter as we understand it. The only reason it appears a solid matter is because the atoms, the particles that make it up, are most likely to continue appearing as solid matter to the degree in which that we can use it and sit on it as a couch. But it's just potential energy radiating radiating couch within the fields. Yeah, exactly. Because it's matter that has been manipulated to appear in a certain way, and it's most likely to continue staying that way.
Yeah.
But it's literally potential. Like, everything is just potential energy. Maybe just more dense or more light, depending on which dimension that you're operating in, right? Our thoughts are far more likely to change and constantly swirling around in comparison to the solidity of the couch or even our bodies. But that doesn't change the fact that it's still entirely just energy. So if we can look at everything as energy imbued with meaning, then that changes our relationship with the world fundamentally, and we can guide ourselves and navigate through life with a lot more harmony or a lot more wisdom than if we are seeing everything as so fixed and solid all the time. That applies especially also to our beliefs, to our thoughts, to other people's thoughts, other people's beliefs, the intentions that other people have for us, and our intentions in life. All of it. It's all permeable. If we connect with our soul first and foremost, and we increase the energetic quality of our own beings, we can change the energetic reality around us. Yeah.
That's super awesome, brother. Thank you so much for your time. Is there anywhere you'd like people to send for your tarot cards or for other products or services that you have?
Right now, it's just visit us on YouTube. We're rebuilding all of our websites and our academy site and everything. So it's embarrassing. I don't even really have a website right now. So go and find Spiritverse on YouTube, and thank you very much.
Cool. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Really appreciate your time and attention. I hope this was valuable for you, and I know it was for so many of you. And thank you for your time and attention watching us each and every week, and we'll see you next time.